Imagine a church filled with whispers, thunder roaring in the background, and a preacher who seems to hold the secrets of the universe. It was a stormy Sunday morning at the hall of Divine Grace Ministries, where Prophetess Theresa, widely revered as Mama Vision, was set to address a desperate crowd. Known for her supposed divine insight and miraculous powers, Teresa was worshipped by many. However, her trusted aide Maria rushed forward, announcing yet another miracle. While the congregation celebrated, Grace, a quiet observer, noted something unsettling. She had seen the healed man walking unassisted just days earlier. Teresa's journey to power began humbly as a devoted churchgoer from a God-fearing family. Over time, her ambition drew her into dark practices after an encounter with Pastor Jonah, a charismatic preacher who introduced her to a secret ritual. Desiring influence, Teresa sacrificed her chance to bear children, pledging herself to a marine occult kingdom. This pact granted her extraordinary abilities but at a harrowing cost. By midnight, Teresa transformed into her true form, a serpent-like creature, and slipped into a river behind her mansion. There, she joined other occult leaders in the underwater realm, drawing sinister power to manipulate her growing congregation. Her fame soared as her services filled with people desperate for miracles and blessings, while she implemented deceptive practices like miracle oils and blessed mirrors to control and exploit her followers. Grace, suspicious of Teresa's actions, began documenting fraudulent miracles and manipulative schemes. Teresa's tactics were ruthless. She exploited fears, broke families, and swindled congregants out of their savings under the guise of divine intervention. She targeted wealthy men like Mr. Ademola, sowing discord in marriages and ensnaring them in affairs for her personal gain. One fateful night, Grace discovered Teresa's terrifying secret: her transformation into a serpent and her allegiance to a dark marine kingdom. Shocked but determined, Grace prepared to expose the deceit. On that stormy Sunday morning, the congregation at Divine Grace Ministries buzzed with anticipation as Prophetess Theresa, or Mama Vision, took the stage. Whispers filled the air about her divine abilities. Some swore she could uncover secrets no one else could, while others believed she spoke directly to God. But behind the reverence lay a far darker truth. Grace, a quiet observer in the crowd, had begun noticing patterns of deceit. Earlier that day, Maria, Teresa's trusted aide, had rushed forward to announce another miraculous healing. A man confined to a wheelchair had supposedly been restored. The congregation erupted in cheers. But Grace, who had seen the same man walking freely days before, felt her doubts solidify. Could this all be a carefully staged show? Teresa's rise to power was nothing short of extraordinary. She had grown up in a humble, devout family, admired by her community for her piety and leadership. But as she entered adulthood, her desire for recognition overshadowed her faith. At a prestigious pastors' conference, she encountered Pastor Jonah, who promised her true spiritual power, at a cost. The ritual she undertook that night changed her life forever, linking her to a marine occult kingdom. Teresa gave up her ability to have children in exchange for power, a decision that bound her soul to the depths of darkness. From then on, her ministry flourished. She attracted followers from across the nation, seeking her divine insight. Little did they know that her midnight transformations, where she shed her human form and entered the water as a serpent, were the source of her so-called miracles. In the underwater kingdom, she conspired with other occult leaders, drawing power to maintain her facade and control her congregation. Teresa's ministry wasn't just built on deception, it thrived on fear. She convinced her followers that they were under constant spiritual attack, requiring her special intervention. Her tools of manipulation included miracle oils, blessed water, and the infamous mirrors of life. Congregants paid exorbitant prices for these items, believing they held the key to their deliverance. One Sunday, Teresa singled out David, a young man who had recently returned from overseas. Calling him to the front, she claimed his life battery was dangerously low, a cryptic warning of impending doom. The solution? A costly sacrifice. Torn between fear and faith, David wrote a substantial check, believing his life depended on it. Teresa pocketed the money, redirecting it toward her lavish lifestyle, including a gold-plated mansion and expensive cars. Grace watched these events unfold with growing unease. Over time, she pieced together a web of lies. She discovered actors hired to fake healings, families torn apart by Teresa's manipulative prophecies, and secret nighttime rituals that hinted at a darker power. But Grace knew exposing Teresa would not be easy. One night, driven by courage and desperation, Grace decided to follow Teresa. Hidden in the shadows near the river behind Teresa's mansion, she waited as the clock struck midnight. Her heart pounded as she saw Teresa emerge, draped in ceremonial robes. Chanting in an ancient language, Teresa transformed before Grace's eyes. Her human form gave way to glistening black scales, her eyes glowing like embers. Slithering into the river, Teresa disappeared beneath the surface. Grace's breath caught in her throat. She had uncovered the horrifying truth. Teresa was not just a fraud, she was something beyond human, bound to a malevolent force. Terrified but resolute, Grace knew she couldn't keep this secret to herself. Grace began gathering evidence. Photos, recordings, and testimonies from others who had been manipulated or exploited. She discovered Teresa's close aides discussing the fraudulent practices, laughing about the profits made from blessed items. Armed with undeniable proof, Grace reached out to local media and law enforcement. When the exposé aired, it sent shockwaves across the country. The once revered Mama Vision was unmasked as a fraud and a predator. Congregants who had given their life savings to her ministry were devastated. Families torn apart by her deceit began to rebuild, and community leaders called for justice. As the truth spread, Teresa's empire crumbled. She was arrested on charges of fraud and conspiracy, and her luxurious mansion was seized. The church that once echoed with cheers now stood empty, a stark reminder of the dangers of blind faith in charismatic leaders. Grace addressed the congregation one final time, standing at the pulpit where Teresa had once reigned. Her voice was steady, filled with conviction. "My brothers and sisters," she began, "this journey has taught us all a painful but necessary lesson. Not everyone who claims to speak for God is truly of God. We must seek the truth with open hearts and discerning minds. Faith is not about fear or manipulation, it is about love, light, and truth." Her words resonated deeply, inspiring many to rebuild their faith on a foundation of authenticity and hope. As Grace walked away from the church that day, she felt a sense of closure. Her actions had freed countless souls from Teresa's grip and exposed the dangerous allure of false prophets. Though the road ahead would be long for the victims, a new dawn had begun, a chance to heal and seek the true essence of faith. As Teresa sat alone in her prison cell, the air grew heavy. Her powers had weakened since the collapse of her ministry, but the marine kingdom was not done with her. In the dead of night, a low hiss echoed through the cell. A familiar voice filled her mind, a voice she hadn't heard since her last visit to the underwater realm. "Teresa," the marine queen hissed, her tone cold and sharp, "you have failed us." Teresa trembled. I'm sorry, my queen. They turned against me. I couldn't stop it. You dared to expose our secrets to mortal eyes. For that, you must pay." Teresa's body convulsed as an icy pain coursed through her veins. She cried out, but no one came to her aid. The marine queen's voice faded, leaving Teresa gasping for air, her resolve shattered. Back at her modest home, Grace was surprised to find a group of church members at her doorstep. They were seeking guidance, unsure of how to move forward after learning of Teresa's occult ties. "Grace," a young woman named Toyin began, "we don't know who to trust anymore. Every pastor we've turned to seems to care more about money than souls. Can you help us?" Grace hesitated. She wasn't a pastor, and her faith had been shaken by everything she'd witnessed. But she couldn't ignore their plea. "I'll do my best," she said finally. "We'll focus on what truly matters, seeking God without the distractions of greed or manipulation." Thus began Grace's informal fellowship, a group dedicated to rebuilding faith on a foundation of truth and humility. Word spread quickly and more people joined, including some who had been loyal to Teresa. Weeks passed and Teresa's imprisonment became a topic of national interest. News outlets covered the fall of Mama Vision, with some exposing the luxurious mansion she'd built and the staged miracles she'd performed. But one stormy night, Teresa vanished from her cell. The guards found her bed empty, the metal bars twisted open as if by some inhuman force. Fear swept through the region as rumors spread of Teresa's return. Some claimed she was seeking revenge on those who exposed her. Others believed she had gone into hiding to regain her strength. Grace, however, suspected something darker. "She's not finished," she told her fellowship. "Whatever power she served, it hasn't let her go." Meanwhile, Teresa resurfaced in a distant city under a new name. She adopted a subtler approach, recruiting followers through online sermons and private healing sessions. Her new message focused on secrecy, urging her followers to remain hidden from unbelievers. Grace learned of Teresa's resurgence when one of her fellowship members received an invitation to an exclusive prayer meeting. "She's rebuilding," Grace said grimly. And this time she's hiding her true intentions better than before. Determined to stop Teresa once and for all, Grace began investigating the new ministry. She discovered that Teresa was now operating under the name Prophetess Miriam, targeting wealthy individuals with promises of miraculous financial breakthroughs. Grace reached out to investigative journalists, presenting them with evidence of Teresa's previous crimes and her ties to the Marine Kingdom. The journalists launched an undercover operation, attending one of Teresa's secret gatherings. The footage they captured was chilling. Teresa, cloaked in ceremonial robes, led her followers in a chant that echoed the dark rituals Grace had witnessed before. The Marine Queen's influence was unmistakable. With the evidence in hand, Grace decided to confront Teresa directly. She attended one of the secret gatherings, disguising herself to blend in with the crowd. As Teresa took the stage, her eyes scanned the room, and landed on Grace. "Welcome, child," Teresa said with a sinister smile. "I knew you'd come." The room fell silent as Teresa's followers turned to look at Grace. "You're brave," Teresa continued, stepping closer. "But you've made a grave mistake." Grace stood her ground. "Your lies end here, Teresa. These people deserve to know the truth about who you really are." Teresa's smile faded, replaced by a cold glare. "You think you can stop me? My power is far greater than you understand." Before anyone could react, the lights flickered and a chilling wind swept through the room. Teresa's form began to shift, her eyes glowing as scales appeared on her skin. The crowd screamed, some fleeing while others froze in terror. Grace pulled out her phone, recording the transformation. "This is the proof the world needs," she whispered to herself. As Teresa lunged toward Grace, a blinding light filled the room. Grace had prayed silently, calling on divine protection. Teresa shrieked, recoiling from the light as her form reverted to human. The followers, now seeing Teresa's true nature, turned against her. Some prayed fervently while others fled the scene. Teresa, weakened and exposed, disappeared into the shadows. Grace's video of the encounter went viral, solidifying Teresa's downfall and warning others of the dangers of blind faith. Her fellowship grew, attracting people from all walks of life who were eager to rebuild their spiritual lives. Though Teresa was gone, Grace remained vigilant. She knew that darkness had many faces, and her mission to protect and guide others was far from over. "Faith," she often told her fellowship, "is not about the person leading you. It's about the truth you hold in your heart." And so, Grace's journey continued, a beacon of hope in a world filled with deception.